Final project for Black Woman and Black Power, A Radical Life, December 12th, 2025. My goals of this project are to establish the dramatic question, show how she's radical by connecting her to other radical women, and show how she has shaped her professional career around being a black woman. My questions I hope to answer in this project are how her time as a public defender helped shape her career, and what routes were and weren't open to her as a black woman in law. When talking about the highest score in the nation, many think of a path made up of privilege and purely conservative values. Ketanji Brown Jackson, on the other hand, changes that picture. The story begins in 1970 in the nation's capital of Washington, D.C., that was facing severe urban decay. Crime and post-Vietnam War Watergate disillusionment, but within the city, a scene of jazz and prominent leaders like Marion Barry showed the city's identity. Her parents, who both went to HBCUs, taught her that she could succeed, but that there'd be challenges along the way. She grew up knowing about the systems that held people who looked like her back. Later, she would fight these systems from the inside of the nation's highest court. She did very well in school at Harvard College and Harvard Law School, but even in these elite settings, she always felt like she had to prove she belonged. In her senior thesis, The Hand of Oppression, she began to question the criminal justice system. She said that plea bargaining often puts pressure on people, especially poor people, to plead guilty when they may not really want to. This early focus shows that she has always cared about fairness for the most vulnerable people. Jackson took a very different path after law school than the usual one that leads to the Supreme Court. She didn't want to work in corporate law, so she moved towards public service law instead. As a federal public defender in Washington, D.C., she defended people who had the least money, the least protection, and the least power. Many of them were caught up in a system that was meant to move quickly and punish harshly. A case that truly reflects her defense of the downtrodden is her case in 2005-2007, where she served as an assistant federal public defender in a case that represented men from Guantanamo Bay who had been detained for years without receiving any formal charge or trial. This case highlights her philosophy that the Constitution is something that's supposed to protect the most vulnerable, not just the most powerful. Ketanji Brown Jackson's early career echoed that of Constance Baker Motley, one of the first black women to break into elite legal institutions. Motley fought segregation as a civil rights lawyer and later became the first black woman federal judge. Jackson follows the lineage, entering spaces historically closed to black women and creating change from within a space that traditionally put women of color down. When it comes to answering how Jackson's skin color and gender shaped her career path, I thought to compare it to another radical woman from history, that is, Ida B. Wells. Ida B. had to take care of her siblings and thus had to work a job. Instead of being able to teach in regular schools, she was forced to teach in country schools due to both her skin color and gender. Similarly, Jackson faced difficulty breaking into the corporate law route that many Supreme Court justices build their early career off of. Instead, she developed her career as a part of the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit, where she often won cases shortening prison time and helping those who were pushed down by the system. When it comes to Jackson's career path, many had speculation whether a 51-year-old woman had the experience to become a justice, but when it comes to how she differs from other justices, she blows them out of the water. She has spent time as a public defender, sentencing commissioner, and district judge, being the only judge currently sitting who has done so. Looking at her career, throughout her time as a judge, a prosecutor, she has continued to push through barriers, rising up in the ranks of the nation's courts. When Jackson was nominated to the board by Biden on March 21, 2022, was a great moment for the first black woman to join the Supreme Court, but in her way stood stark opposition against her in the confirmation hearings that she would have to face. These hearings weren't just based about qualifications. They turned into a national performance based off race and gender-biased gatekeeping. Senators doubted her knowledge, twisted her record, and tried to make it look like she was unfit for the job. The New Yorker cartoon from this time perfectly shows the situation, a hostile line of questioning that could never bring her down. She's shown squashing Senator Lindsey Graham underneath her foot. Jackson eventually did become confirmed to join the Supreme Court, but there was still a massive amount of negative media shining in her way. The chart above shows how the real signs of disapproval coming towards her campaign were not along merit, but instead drawn across race and party lines, with the only real source of disapproval coming from the Republican side, with 53% of Republicans disapproving with her confirmation hearing, while over 80% of Democrats approve of it. So when asked what makes Ketanji Brown Jackson radical, the answer isn't just her historic role, it is the perspective she carries into it. She brings to the Supreme Court not just her legal brilliance, but a wider view of the law, based off race, gender, and structural inequality. And that perspective is going to help reshape the law continuing into the 21st century.